Okay, I'm just going to get my presentation here on the screen. I assume everyone can see it. Okay, so as I mentioned, my name is Jen McIsaac and I work for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm a team lead of our school-based programs. So I'll walk you through a little bit about the presentation, about who we are, our programs, who we serve. So what is mentoring? And so as you can see from our screen, we really want to pair caring adults in the community or school-based programs to littles, as we call them, young people, to form a developmental relationship that helps work on their social emotional skills. Big Brothers Big Sisters mentors form strong, positive relationships with their mentees that express care, challenge growth, share power, and expand possibilities. So those are really the 5 key domains that our mentors are working on with young people. And I will talk a little bit more about that in the slides to come. And so mentees and mentors alike benefit from these professional supported relationships. When you're there for a young person, as they grow, you learn just as much as they do. I'm also a mentor in our school-based programming, and I always say that I feel like I get more out of the relationship sometimes than my little. I know she has a good time, but I definitely have a great time. We do things like baking and crafts and sports, and so who doesn't like to bake and cook with their young person? So again, I feel like mentoring is definitely a two-way street, and a lot of our mentors get a lot of positive outcomes as well as the littles that we serve. So for our theory of change, it's basically just a roadmap of our work from the intake process all the way up to the matching and mentoring relationship. And so our key outcomes of the program is really that we want 100% of our young people to form developmental relationships with their mentor. And so that looks like spending time together, out in the community, or as I said, in the school-based programming, and really allowing that young person to know that that mentor is just there for them. It's their safe, trusted adult that they can talk to and that they can spend time with. 80% of our young people will experience improvements in one or more of our social emotional competencies. And so I'll talk a little bit about the outcomes at the end, but this is just in a nutshell a roadmap of how we do our work. So who we serve, so children and youth living in Calgary area who are facing adversity, are in need of additional supportive, consistent relationships, are open to it, so they have to want it. We never want to force a young person into a program, so we might get a referral from a teacher or from a parent saying, yes, I really want this young person enrolled in the program. And if we meet with them and they tell us, you know what, actually, I don't want to mentor, this isn't something I want to do, then we wouldn't force them. So we would make sure to relay that message back to the person that referred to them. But more often than not, the young people that get referred to us end up wanting a mentor, which is really awesome. Being safely matched is important. So we meet with our young people to do training, to make sure they understand what safe and healthy boundaries look like so that they can be matched safely out in the community with an adult. If we find that they're having some difficulties understanding safety key messages, then we might want to meet with them a little bit more before we send them off with a mentor. And lastly, have a parent or guardian who is open to mentoring for their child and youth. Even though it's a one-on-one relationship with that child, young person, and the mentor, parents and guardians play a strong role in the mentoring relationship as well. So we need to make sure that they are on board for the match as well. So a little bit about adversity. So as I mentioned, we serve kids that are experiencing adversity. And so what we found, so ACEs is kind of a coined term for adverse childhood experiences. And there is a top 10 list of what these adversities are. And really what we decided to do was take a look at our client files to see who are the young people that we serve, where are they coming from, and what are some types of adversity or hardships have they experienced in their lives. And so out of a sample, I think, of 100 files that we looked at, we saw that 66% of those young people experience 4 or more adversities. And so you can see at the bottom, 77% with parents' divorce or separation, which is actually really common now, to, you know, things like being bullied, financial stress, domestic violence in the home, and then 5%, very small, is the sexual abuse. And so again, we don't preface adversity as like a negative thing. It's more so because of the adversity and the hardships our young people face, a lot of resiliency comes out of that. And we make sure that we train our mentors that just because a young person has experienced some hardship in their life, despite that, they are thriving and they are just wanting to spend time with somebody that really cares about them. So that's kind of in a nutshell of what we look for when we're intaking our families. So how we serve, so we essentially have 2 main mentoring programs. So we have the first stream, which is mentoring in the community, which we serve kids between the age of 6 all the way up to 24. And then we also have school-based mentoring, where a mentor would go into that young person's either elementary or junior high for 1 hour a week. So for our child-based programs, it's for the kids between the ages of 6 to 12 out in the community. Our youth programs are for youth between the ages of 13 to 24, again, out in the community. We also serve satellite communities, so Okotoks, the MD of Foothills, Airdrie, Cochrane, and Rocky View County, although most of our numbers do come from Calgary. We do work with the MASS team, the multi-agency school support team. We also have a targeted program called PRISM, and that's for LGBTQ2+S youth and mentors in the community. We also serve youth who are in care or transitioning out of care, so foster homes, kinship cares, group homes, those types of things. We also have a teen mentoring program where we pair the young people, so the teenagers, junior high or high school, they are the mentors. So they go into an elementary school for 1 hour a week and hang out with a student doing fun games. It builds leadership skills in those teen mentors. It gives them some sense of responsibility. The young people, the littles that are paired with them, love it. They love having a high school kid come into the school to just spend time with them. So that was a program that I've run for many years and definitely see the impacts on both sides. Our Between Generations program is also a school program, but our adult mentors are senior citizens. So seniors anywhere up between 50, 55 and plus. I think our oldest senior was, 92. So that was pretty cool to see a senior being paired up with an elementary student. We do some group programming in Okotoks only. So the Okotoks Oilers hockey team go into an elementary school as a group, and they get to mentor a group of young boys doing hands-on recreational activities. Now with our school-based programming in COVID, we're still planning of what that's going to look like for this year. So virtual mentoring could potentially be an option for those young people. So mentoring in the community, as I talked a little bit about it, it's really up to the matches, so that big and that little, to plan their activities and what they want to do based on similar interests. So maybe it's going out for ice cream, going for a bike ride. Pre-COVID, it was maybe going to a hockey game or a concert. So really that was the one-on-one time spent in the community. Typically they see each other for 2 to 3 hours per week, depending on the age of the young person. We find youth, so those young people 13 and plus, it's a little bit harder to get together with them once a week because they've got their own social lives and extracurricular activities happening. So as long as they meet with their mentor on a 5 to 8 hour basis a month, whether it's a few hours in person or connecting via social media, we found that that has long lasting impacts for their match. We do ask for a commitment for 1 full year of all of our bigs and our littles, whether they're in the community program or in the school-based program, just because research shows that 1 year is a good amount of time to really build that developmental relationship with a young person. And so as I was talking a little bit about mentoring in schools, so pre-COVID, mentors would go into either an elementary or a junior high. They would spend 1 hour a week at that young person's school, doing fun activities to build on social emotional skills. So as I mentioned with my own match, baking, crafts, board games, sports, playing outside is always a big fun thing. Mentors usually don't have any contact with the little's family because it is a school-based program. However, the young person's teacher usually is involved, as they would have made the referral for them to be in the program. Our staff are usually on site as well, especially for our teen mentoring programs, where those are high school kids that go into the school. Our staff are always on site, and it's similar. The high school kids would go into an elementary school. They would meet with the young person for 1 hour a week, doing fun activities. It's not necessarily academic based. Most kids don't want to miss school for an hour just to go do homework with their big. So we really try to make it about fun and social emotional learning. But if a young person wants to, read a book together or need help with homework or projects, then our mentors are all very capable of doing that as well. Between Generations, as I mentioned, is our program for our senior mentors. And that's pretty unique because our senior mentors, they get to have 2 littles. So they'll spend 1 hour with one little. They have about a half an hour coffee, tea, social time with each other. And then the next hour is spent with a new little. And that program has been really successful, and we've seen really good outcomes, not only just for the littles, but for our senior citizens as well, specifically around helping social connection and reducing social isolation. So specifically for our FRN program stream, so what are programs that we offer through the FRN is the youth-based mentoring. So for the young people between the ages of 13 to 18 that could use an adult mentor. Some youth matches maybe talk more about, well, what does post-secondary look like, or applying for jobs, or, how do I go about getting my driver's license, and, different types of goals and aspirations that they might have. So a mentor could get paired up with them to help them work on those things. If the youth doesn't want to talk about life after high school or any of that, then that's totally okay. Just having an adult in their life is usually helpful enough. And once they've built that natural relationship, then more of those goal-oriented conversations can occur. Again, we do ask for a 1-year commitment. Teen mentoring, so that's where we're pairing those high school and junior high age students in elementary schools. So typically most of our teen mentors are 13 and older. However, we do have some 12-year-olds that are just in grade 8 that have acted as really great mentors. Again, because of COVID and some schools not allowing external guests into their schools, we have been, brainstorming of, well, what could virtual mentoring look like? So getting the elementary kids set up on a laptop, getting the high school kids set up on laptops as well, and what does that look like? So we have spoken to some schools, and schools are very supportive of wanting to continue the mentoring program, but are just a little unsure of what that looks like. So we've decided to just let the schools kind of figure out what their new normal looks like for the month of September, and then hopefully circle back with them in October to see what that could look like. So if you are working with young people who you think could use some leadership skills, referring them to become a teen mentor would be a really good avenue. Another FRN program stream is PRISM. So we take young people as young as 6, and then we serve them up till the age of 24. And then those are young people who identify in the LGBTQ2S+ community. And then we pair them up with mentors who also identify in that community. And again, we do ask for a 1-year commitment. And then based on that young person's age, they might see each other weekly, or if they're a youth, they might see each other once or twice a month, and they connect via social media. And that typically works well for everybody. So a little bit more about our process, specifically for volunteers. So a prospective volunteer would submit their application online. They would be contacted within 48 hours from a member of our engagement team. We do a quick pre-screen, why is it that they want to mentor? What experiences do they have with young people, and so on. We then schedule them for an in-person training session. And so that's typically about 3.5 hours. During, the height of COVID, we had paused that for a little bit, but we are now starting to meet with our volunteers in person. So it's been great that we've been able to get some more people through. We do ask them to do a Alberta mentorship online training as well, in addition to the in-person training. We ask for, we get them to do police checks, child intervention checks. We ask for 3 references. So we do a pretty thorough background check. After their training has been successful, we will then schedule them for an in-person interview. During COVID, or actually still now, we've been doing virtual interviews with our mentors via Zoom or Skype. Just because our office is still closed to the public, except for our trainings. We'll typically bring them in on a Saturday or on an evening. But as our office begins to start opening up, hopefully here pretty soon, then we can get more volunteers through. And just as an aside, we do have about 300 young people waiting currently for a mentor, and that's between all of our programs across all different ages. And so it's super important for us to do a lot of volunteer recruitment. We have seen a larger number of volunteer inquiries coming through, specifically during COVID. I think people are realizing that, I do have the time to give back to the community, and now more than ever is really important to keep kids connected, because we know with COVID, there's that social isolation piece. So the good news is that we are seeing more volunteers come through, which is really awesome. So once we've done all the necessary checks, we've assessed that they are a good fit for the program, we will accept them. If we feel that maybe they aren't the best fit at this time, we might refer them to a different volunteer agency that might be a better fit for them, or we would just, encourage them to apply later on. But we do have a pretty thorough screening process. And then once a mentor is accepted, we then begin looking for a match for them. So we would look for a little who has kind of the same interests. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the matching process in a bit. So on average, it's about 90 days from when a volunteer inquires and, it puts in their application to the time that they actually are ready and get matched. So 3 months can seem like a bit of a long time, but again, we are asking for a 1-year commitment. So we really want to make sure that all of our volunteers are really ready for the commitment and are here for the long haul. Client referral sources. So where do our clients, our young people come from? So typically families of the littles, so parents or guardians. Children and youth can self-refer. They can submit their own application right online. Child and Family Services does a lot of referrals, especially for our youth in care. United Way and the All In for Youth initiative, we would get a lot of referrals from. The City of Calgary and CPS, specifically for the MAST program. As well as various school boards and districts, specifically for our school-based program. It might be a teacher that recommends a young person in their classroom that could benefit from a mentor. So we get our referrals from a lot of different places. When it comes to matching bigs and littles, we don't just pair, obviously, anyone together. We are really thorough in what goes into it, meaning personality traits, lived experiences, family dynamics, preferences. So we ask, of the family and the volunteer, what kinds of things do you want to do when you're in a mentoring match? What kind of lived experiences do you have? Also, we look at things like location. So if we know a mentor lives in the Southeast and we have a little in the deep Northwest, then that's literally on the opposite end of the city. And so we want to be mindful that the mentor isn't driving 40 minutes each way to go get their little. So we ask them, how far are you willing to drive to meet that young person, and things like that, because we want to set the match up for success. And if we know that a mentor is driving, like I said, 40 minutes each way, especially in the winter when the roads are awful, that could deter them from continuing with the commitment. So we want to be really realistic. We also do agency recommendations. So if a volunteer has very limited experience with children, but definitely has the want and the drive, then we might recommend a lower needs child or a family to pair them to, because we do want them to make a developmental connection and So making sure that they receive the support right off the bat is really going to set them up for success in the long run. So the power of three, so the family, the mentor, and us as the agency are the real three components that surround that young person. So the family or guardians are obviously the ones that are, supporting the young person in the program. They're going to check in to make sure that that young person's having a good time. The mentor is obviously providing the mentoring service. And us as an agency, we are making sure that there is a good match, that we're providing them that support throughout the whole year. We never want a mentor to feel like they're completely on their own. Same thing with a family. They always have somebody that they can call and talk to should something arise in the match. So mentoring coordinators are the staff at Big Brothers Big Sisters that get assigned to a match. And so they support the family, the little and the big throughout the whole relationship. And they really focus on providing tips and suggestions of how they can make the match better. As we know, success isn't linear. Just like any relationship, there's going to be highs and lows and some bumps along the way, and that's completely normal. But we want to make sure that our young people and our mentors feel supported throughout the whole process. Our mentoring coordinators will also provide external referrals for families. The food bank is definitely a big one that we provide support for. Summer camps, day camps. Kids Up Front is also one that actually we get a lot of tickets and resources from, so that we will be able to provide our matches with some activities and things like that to do. Monthly matched events. So during COVID, they look a little bit different. Prior to COVID, we organize free events for our matches to come to, typically once or twice a month. Things like the zoo. We always have Telescience Spark passes free for any of our matches to use throughout the year. During COVID, we've done virtual matched events. So one of the big ones was the big pandemic bake-off, where matches were baking virtually with each other in the theme of COVID. So we've had some really creative entries of people baking cupcakes with like the COVID sign, or like Lysol wipes as fondant. Like it was pretty creative. So really just trying to get our matches to stay connected, even when COVID kind of makes it more challenging. We have resumed in-person visits, so our bigs and littles can see each other out in the community. For the summer, we really encourage them to be outside, since social distancing was a little bit easier. Now with the weather changing, it's totally up to the discretion of the big and the little if they feel comfortable meeting inside, and if they do, making sure that they have masks and hand sanitizers and things like that. So we do ask for a 1-year commitment. A lot of our matches go beyond the year, which is awesome. So just a quick snapshot. So 79% of when our matches close means that they've met the commitment. So they've done at least 1 year together, which is awesome. 6% transition to a natural support. So they decide, you know what, we don't really need the agency support anymore. We're totally cool on our own, which we definitely really encourage that they go to a natural support. And then 15% are for other reasons. So maybe the big moved, the family moved, personal life changes, the big may have started their own family, potentially there was an illness, all kinds of different reasons why a match wouldn't continue. But 79% had met the commitment, which is a pretty big success for us. And like I said, a lot of matches, some matches in the agency, the big had the little in their wedding. So the little grew up and then was able to go to their wedding. Or similarly, I know we had one match. The girl was like 10 or 12 when she started being the little, and now she recently graduated from university and is an accountant, and she's still connected to her big. So those are definitely positive success stories. Doesn't happen all the time, but when they do, we really like to highlight them. So just a little bit about our impact and how do we know mentoring works and what are the things that we look for. So we have a tool called the DESA. And so it's a 72 item survey, which seems really long and daunting, but it's actually really easy for parents and guardians to fill out. So we're looking at things like in the last 4 weeks, has your child spoken positively about something? In the last 4 weeks, have they done something nice for somebody? So that really just gives us a score. Basically, where is that young person at? So it'll tell us, you know, they are really strong and maybe optimistic thinking. They're really average in, you know, self-confidence, but maybe they need support in goal-directed behavior. So we'll get those outcomes, we'll get that score, and then we could actually then let the mentor know that, hey, your young person does really great in this area. However, they might need some help in this area. And then we actually give them ideas and activity suggestions of how they can incorporate that into the match. So the parent or the guardian of the young person completes that. There's also a survey that came out of the Washoe County School District, and that's really measuring social emotional competencies. So, you know, things like, do they speak, or like self-awareness, self-confidence. So really wanting to get a sense of where that young person's at. And so that young person fills it out themselves. And so we typically, we survey kids grade 4 and up. We used to survey kids grades 1 and 2 and 3, but level of like reading and comprehension wasn't quite there. So we were just finding them picking like random questions. It's like, I don't even think they were reading it. So that's totally fine. So now we are looking at surveying kids that are in grade 4 and over. Measuring impacts is also qualitative. So what are they telling us, right? So our mentoring coordinators will call the young person and follow up. How are you doing in your match? You know, do you like your big? Is a big one, because sometimes the bigs tell us, hey, you know, I don't actually know if my little likes me or if they're having fun, because they don't say it, right? And so the mentoring coordinator then has to go back to the little, and the little goes, oh no, like I'm having a really good time, but they just, you know, they just might not show it, and that's completely fine. So we really want to relay those messages back to the mentor, just so that they know that they are doing a good job and they are moving that needle. And same thing with the big, right? We ask the big, like, what's your favorite thing about hanging out with your little and that young person? And then we go back and let that little know, you know what, actually your mentor thinks you're awesome and like you're doing really good when you're out, you know, playing this game, or, you know, using your manners when you're out in public. Like we really try to build them up and come from a strengths-based approach. So developmental relationships, I won't go too far into them, but there's kind of the 5 key areas where we want the mentor to be kind of working on with the little. So expanding possibilities, so broaden their horizons, connect them with different people in the community. A lot of our kids have never left Calgary. So bringing them out to Kananaskis or Banff for the day to do like a hike or a nature walk is like something completely new for them. So that would be a really great way that the mentor can expand possibilities. Challenging growth. So, you know, keep them accountable is a big thing, especially in games, right? I mean, sometimes kids get frustrated when they don't win, or they're, you know, not following the rules. So it's up to the mentor to just kind of show them like, hey, it's okay to not always win, but like keep going, keep trying. Express care, just be consistent. We really want mentors to know that if you show up, you are going to make that difference, but you have to keep showing up every week. Sharing power is a huge thing. A lot of times our littles, you know, they're being told what to do at home. They're being told what to do at school. So they don't really have that autonomy to make their own decisions. So in the match, if the mentor says, hey, like, what do you feel like doing today? You know, what's on your mind? What do you really want to do? That might be that one place where they have the autonomy to say, yeah, this is really what I want to do. So really sharing power is a big one. Providing support, that's just for mentors to be there for that young person. Yeah, and I think I kind of covered all of that. So we survey, as I mentioned, we survey the young people in their program, and the biggest standout, so the question that we say, my mentor makes me feel known and valued. So that's really going into that express care domain. 97% of our littles say yes, they make them feel known. My mentor shows that they care about me, 97%, super high. My mentor takes me seriously and treats me fairly. So that's the sharing power aspect, 97%. We do notice that there is a little bit more work that needs to be done in some certain areas. So provide support. My mentor puts in place limits that keep me on track, 83. My mentor introduces me to people who can help me grow, expand possibilities, 63%. Typically our mentoring matches are one-on-one. So I understand that it's a little bit more challenging for mentors to introduce their young people to a bunch of new people when we say that it should only be one-to-one. So I understand that's a little bit more challenging. My mentor insists me to take responsibility for my actions, so 85%. So for kids and young people to say that 85% of the time the mentors insist that, I think that's a pretty big positive thing. So really, out of our theory of change, like we said, we were wanting 100% of kids to form developmental relationships. And based on these stats alone, we're super close to achieving it. So that's something that we're really proud of. Social emotional learning, I think a few other presentations today have also touched upon social emotional learning. So that's something that we really want our mentors to incorporate: self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness, and self-management. So typically all of these things begin to enhance when they're with a mentor. And we try to break it down for mentors that it's not something super scary that you're always like, oh, I really have to make sure that I'm making sure that my little's, self-management is there today, and really wanting to encourage responsible decision-making. Like they don't have to think too much about it. A lot of these elements just kind of occur naturally when you're hanging out with a young person, just taking the time to ask them questions, to find out a little bit more about them, where they're coming from, really is the stepping stone of building all of these skills anyway. Positive shifts. So clients match so I said, we ask for a 1-year commitment. So once that 1 year is up, we'll survey them. So out of the 41 sample size that we have here, 27% of clients showed significant improvement in the social emotional domains, which is huge. So that's at least 1 to 2 or even 3 social emotional domains have significantly spiked because of being matched for a year. And 76% of those 41 kids had a positive shift throughout. And then you'll see that clients that were matched for 2 or more years experienced 53% of a significant shift, and 90% of those kids had a positive shift pretty much throughout the whole map of the social emotional domain. So I think that just kind of speaks to the work that the mentors are doing, and there is that impact. A couple quotes that we really like to gather from our littles. She let me vent and gave me the space to de-stress. It felt roomy and better. If I had a bad day, we could talk and I wouldn't be judged and I'd feel better. So that was a little in our school-based mentoring program. He taught me how to tie my shoes. I didn't know before, and without him, I would have learned it the hard way by myself. And that was actually great because that little learned that from his teen mentor. So a high school student taught the kid to tie their shoes. So that was pretty special. Taught me kindness when he first met because my mom was sick, and my mentor made me feel better. My mom died and my mentor is still here. So really, really sad, but a lot of our kids, do experience some challenges and death in the family. And so we want to try to, normalize that and kind of give them that space to grieve as best as they can. She makes my day more positive. I sprained my ankle a couple weeks ago and I missed a couple of days of school, and I was deciding if I'd miss the Monday too, but I wanted to come see my mentor. So I just took painkillers. So for school-based mentoring, it's typically consistent so with me, I see my little every Wednesday during the school year. And what we do find is that a lot of kids, they might be absent Mondays or Tuesdays pretty consistently, but on that Wednesday, when they know that their mentor is going to be there, they're showing up to school. And I think that's a big nod and big credit to the mentoring relationship, which is really neat. And just a little bit about the impact on mentors, because as I said, it's not just the mentees that are getting something out of it, the mentors are actually getting out a lot of it. So out of 1,352 mentors, they donated over 60,000 hours of their time and supported 1,322 children and youth. 49% were teen mentors, and 51% were adult mentors. Mentors range in the age from 18 all the way to 13 to 83. The average age of adult volunteers was 35. So what they've said, 95% said it was still very rewarding. 95 said they are making a difference. 82 indicated an increase in knowledge and skills on mentoring, and 96% would recommend mentoring with big brothers, big sisters to others, which is huge. We find where we get a lot of our mentors is through word of mouth. So if we know that a mentor had a really positive experience, they're likely to talk to their family and friends about it. And that kind of sparks interest for other people to sign up, which is awesome. And then social media is also a really big one too. So yeah, in a nutshell, those are our mentoring programs. So if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. If not, my contact information is up on the screen, so feel free to email me. Clients and families can submit applications directly online. If you want to submit an application for a young person, you can do that online as well. If you want some more information, like I said, just send me an email and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.